So the house I've recently moved to, Shrimp Cottage, has got a wood-burning stove. Now, there's a selection of tools here for a wood-burning stove, but there's one thing missing. It's a toasting fork. So yeah, we've got a shovel and a hearth brush, we've got tongs, we've got various other bits and pieces. I suppose it's also true that a poker is missing from this picture, but for example, you can poke things with the tongs. Toasting fork is missing from here, so let's make one. So I'm going to be using brand new stainless wire for this. The toasting forks that my mum and her family would have used would probably have been made from fencing wire or from bent wire coat hangers. But I've got some 1.6mm stainless wire here that I'm going to use for mine. So I need to cut 2 long lengths of this. Going to cut them a little bit oversized so that we've got plenty to work with. But I reckon probably about 1.5 meters per piece. A little bit of prep. I'm just going to put some tape around the jaws of my pliers so that these grip marks on here don't mar the metal. I can of course just take this off when I'm done. I'm just going to find the midpoint of my wire, which is about there, and I'm going to start by just gripping my wire in the jaws here. Okay, so these 2 pieces of wire here I'm going to twist together like this to start with, just to form a twisted section in the middle of the middle of the length of the wire. Okay, and we'll go for about that much, and then I'm going to grab hold of that and twist it some more to make it nice and tight. Now interestingly, the toasting forks that I remember from my youth when we visited my grandmother's house in the north of England were not just functional. There was a little bit of artistry and kind of decorative craft that had gone into the construction of them. So it wasn't just a case of people making something to fulfill a function. There was a little bit of pride and artistry in the construction, and I'll try my best to do something like that myself today. So we'll just do the same from the other end, just give that a little twist together, just really to bind this. This is going to be the loop that it hangs up on at the end of the handle. I've just wrapped that around a off-cut branch and twisted together there. Now I need to straighten these out and create the main twist, for which I'm going to place this upright like that so I can really pull on it, and then it's just going to be a case of twisting together to form the straight handle. And what I'm going to do here is get it roughly twisted and then give it a tight twist with the pliers, leaving enough on the ends for making my fork. Okay, so it needs to be at least like maybe 1 foot long, maybe a bit more, maybe like 14 inches long, because you don't want your hands right next to the hot fire that you're toasting bread on. It's hot enough to toast bread, you don't want to be putting your hands near to that. And of course twisting it like this shortens it. That's kind of inevitable. Okay, not the neatest twist I would have hoped for, but it'll do. The point is, it's actually quite stiff. Okay, so there's my loop, there's my handle. It is a little bit flexible, but I think it's going to be okay. Now this end, this is going to be the 4 prongs of the fork. Now this is where you quite often see some really quite decorative flourishes, but I'm going to keep it fairly simple today. So we're just going to bend these inner prongs, going to recurve them a little bit, just kind of bend them in, and then straighten them out. That's good, that's the inner 2 prongs. And then the outer prongs are going to do a similar sort of thing, bending right in to there. I don't know why, but that's quite a common sort of design theme for a toasting fork, is for the prongs to be kind of to go out and then bend back in. No idea why. In fact, I have seen, in fact I might do it here as well. I might just twirl that round and then back out like that. That's good, that's one. And then we'll do the same in reverse on the other side. It's going to loop around and then come back out and in. So something like that. Okay, I'm going to trim off these long ends because I know how much I need now. I know I don't need much more than about that. So I can trim these off now and then we'll do a bit of tidying up. And tidying is really just going to consist of maybe straightening out and taking some kinks out of these pieces. Something like that. So there we go, that's my toasting fork. Just a little bit of tidying up of these sharp cut ends, just so we don't end up ingesting metal burrs. Alright, so there is my toasting fork. Let's go and get a fire lit and give it a try. Now, even though we've got a lovely roaring fire developing here, I can't toast over the flames, so we are going to have to let that burn down to embers. I'm burning mostly oak today, which will give us a lovely hot bed of embers. Really nice clean burn, and yeah, it'll burn down to really nice hot embers. Right, so the fire is nice and hot. These flames are just about to die down, leaving us with hot embers or hot coals. And that's when we're going to do our cooking. So Jenny's just making a cup of tea and we're going to toast some crumpets. Now I should say, mild trigger warning, crumpets have got lots of holes in them, so if you're sensitive to that, then this next bit might not be for you. Well, I suppose the initial test of the toasting fork is, will it fork? So, well, that looks to be the trick. Now you may very well ask, why toast crumpets by an open fire when you've got a toaster? And I've got a grill in the oven as well, so I could just toast these conventionally. And I think it's really just to feel part of a tradition that goes a long, long way back. So the tradition of the toasting fork goes all the way back to when the fire in the house was the cooking fire. But it's just one of those traditions that, because it's all the way back from that time, it feels like a really cozy thing to do. So I'm not going to hold this in the fire, I'm just holding it in front of the fire, and that's why it's got such a long handle, because I really don't want to toast my hands. I only want to toast the crumpet. And so we're just cooking really with the radiant heat from these hot coals. I probably should have let it burn down a little bit more, but as long as I don't hold it over the flames, I'm not going to get soot on my crumpet. And I think we will find that crumpets toasted this way are very much more crisp on the outside than they would be from a toaster. A toaster tends to warm them through rather gently, and by the time they're crispy they're also burnt and dried up, whereas this is really, really hot radiant heat that's applied to the surface. And I'm hoping that what we'll end up here is tender crumpets but with a really crisp crust. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this because the light's kind of weird in here anyway, but that's actually got a lovely golden brown hue to it now. It looks, I'm just looking at the screen on the camera, it doesn't look nearly so toasted on the camera as it does in reality. I'm going to toast it to the point that I like it. Okay, that's definitely enough. let's get some butter on that before it cools down. Okay, and we'll get another one lined up. Did you want to toast a crumpet, Jenny?
Yeah.
Okay, there's another one loaded and ready to go. Now, I've said in the past, if you can't see the butter coming out of the bottom of the crumpet, you're doing it wrong. So we're not quite there yet. Right, butter is now coming out of the bottom of the crumpet. Tasting time. So, fire toasted crumpet. Oh, that's really good. And there is a tiny little bit of smokiness there from the oak logs. It's a tiny bit of kind of oak smoked flavour. Really interesting. So there's a reason why that's different to doing it in a toaster. Really nice. There's definitely something different about the surface texture, about the crispiness on the outside, and it persists even after buttering. Now for this one, I've got some of this pine honey, which I got in Lidl. It's really thick, partly because the rest of the house is actually quite cold. So, I've got oak smoked crumpet with pine flavoured honey, which might be an interesting combination. And so the honey's really thick. The butter was very cold, and I need to eat this before it cools down too much. That's really quite interesting. So you can taste the smokiness of the crumpet, and together with the very, very light pine scent of this honey, it kind of tastes a bit like a barbecue. Well, I'm going to do one more because I forgot something. On here. Yeah. Oh, did it pour? Can't forget the toast axe. Crumpets toasted over a wood fire using a homemade toasting fork. A little trip down memory lane. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.